starting on chapter 6. You last week, Manu, you encouraged us to finish chapter 5. So John read
That's right, yes.
at light speed, and we got through chapter 5. We're now beginning on chapter 6. So we're doing it. So anyway, John, how are you feeling today? And what do you expect to get out of today's call?
I'm feeling pretty good. We've had some fairly hot weather, a bit hotter than I would have liked. Today it's going to be about 37 degrees. And but I got in a walk in the park, which was very enjoyable. And I'm inside in air-conditioned comfort. So yeah, I just like a bit more Bucky, understand a bit more in this chaotic world in which we live. So Joe, how do you feel? What do you hope to take out of today?
I'm feeling very good. It's great to see everybody here. It's been an interesting day here. I've been trying to actually make sure that my internet stays stable. But other than that, I'm just excited to be here and to continue during this journey. I missed you guys last week, but it's good to be back. And so, my expectation is to, keep progressing with chapter 6, and as in store for us this evening. Anu, my friend, how are you? And how are you feeling? What would you like to take away from today?
I feel good. I slept well. Anyway, so we also have heat waves here, but in the northern provinces, in Gauteng, Northwest, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, and these places. Here in the Cape, it's quite cool. It's not hot. The weather is very
pleasant. Sea breezes, don't you? You're on the coast, so you get the sea breezes.
Well, I would just say that the southern provinces, the 3 provinces that are in the south, that is, to a certain extent, part of Northern Cape, Western Cape, and Eastern Cape, are cool. Really, really, it's very pleasant. It's less windy as usual, and it's pleasant. But in the north, KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Northwest, Limpopo, these places, it's been hot. There's heat waves there. So it is an issue. I think they are at the same latitude as Perth in the north. So you might experience things that are similar. Maybe I don't know who's giving to who. Where is it moving? Probably from you to us or from us to you. I don't know. Anyway, I'm good, and yes, I look forward to this chapter 6 world game. So, Steve, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Well, we're having winter over here. So we had some snow on Thanksgiving, and it snowed Thanksgiving evening. My daughter, I was having Thanksgiving with my daughter and my son-in-law, and his family came in from California. They hadn't seen snow, so for them it was a big deal. And it's like 34 Fahrenheit out there right now, so just barely cracking over freezing. So but it's winter and we're having a good time. I have my wool shirt on, so I'm all ready to go. And I'm excited to what I enjoyed last week when we were going through chapter 5 in the previous chapters, where Bucky's talking about Kabul and the Arab states in Afghanistan. This is all pre-20s. It's all pre-90s. This is all 80s. This is back when Afghanistan was like a prospering, place, and it was quite westernized. And he spoke of political things that I had no idea, that I'm sure were part of why Russia went into Afghanistan and then the US went into Afghanistan. And it's kind of interesting to read about this world history from a point of economic exploitation, which is Bucky's big on exposing. So we're going to move into the world game, and I haven't ever played the world game. Some of you guys have.
I have, yep.
Yeah, so we'll see what we learn. I'm all excited. You guys can share your experience. So here we go.
Can I make a comment, Steve?
Please.
Okay, I don't think that Afghanistan was any westernized. So I think the interest of Afghanistan is that, you know, you have two, you know, important areas. When you're talking about, you know, the way Western Europe to Russia, and then you talk about Southeast Asia and Asia, the link via land is through Afghanistan. And it's a natural, it is kind of a natural barrier. But it's absolutely, in terms of the flows of mankind and energy around the world,
Yeah.
it's absolutely vital. It's at the confluence of so many big cultures. You know, you have how will I say, you have Chinese coming from East, you have Turks and Russians from the North and West, you have, you know, the Middle East. When I say Middle East, I mean, and Southeast, like Pakistan and India, close by. And then you have the Indian Ocean. And it's absolutely vital in terms of control for people who have kind of velleities of controlling routes, right?
Yeah.
You know, Afghanistan is still, for example, quite important today to the Road and Silk initiative. What how do you call it?
Belt and Road.
There's Belt and Braces, Belt and Silk Road, Belt and Silk Road.
Yes, it is still very, very critical. So the approach to conquering has failed in Afghanistan, whether it's Russians or Americans or English, it failed. The other approach is negotiation. And it is seeking to painstakingly putting together elements that ensure peace. And that is a difficult road. And we don't like that. Human beings don't like something that is difficult and take a long time. Because you spend a lot of energy and anything can just destabilize it. But we need that consensus and we need to build it. It's peace, nothing else. It's nothing left, nothing right, nothing up, nothing down. It is peace.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe if we play the world game, we'll have that figured out.
Maybe. But I mean, when you play the world game, I've not played really, really extensively, but from reading, when you play the world game, that becomes very obvious.
Cool. I hope to learn.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, John, if you're open for reading, why?
Yes, I'm open for reading.
All right, dynamite. So chapter
Let's go.
6,
World game. I think you may find the physical design science revolution and its software outlined in my world game thesis to be the most thorough, effective, and realistically feasible strategy for accomplishing sustainable physical and metaphysical success for all humanity, all to be realized within the shortest possible time. In my book, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, E.P. Dutton, 1963, you will find my identification of the phenomenon wealth. Wealth consists of physical energy, as matter or radiation, combined with metaphysical know-how, know what and know-how. The scientists make it clear that no physical energy of the universe gets lost. Ergo, the physical constituent of wealth is cosmically irreducible. Experience teaches us that every time we employ our metaphysical know what and know how wealth, we always learn more. Experience can only increase. Ergo, the metaphysical component of wealth can only increase, and totally integrated wealth itself can only increase. From the comprehensively informed world game viewpoint, those who have learned how to make money with money, which money can never be anything but a medium of wealth exchanging, have now completely severed money from its constant functional identity with real wealth. With their game of making money with money, the money makers and their economists continue to exploit the general political and religious world's assumptions that a fundamental inadequacy of human life support exists around our planet. These money interests are wrong because of A, the constant increase in strength per pound of new metallic alloys, B, the constant increase in horsepower per each pound and cubic inch of aircraft engines, and C, the ever-increasing performance per pounds and cubic inches of new chemistries. What? 198, go 199? Oh, and electronics. In general, we have the capability, which can be fully realised within 10 years, of producing and sustaining a higher standard of living for all humanity than that heretofore experienced or dreamt of by any. This is not an opinion or a hope. It is an engineeringly demonstrable fact. This can be done using only the already proven technology and with the already mined, refined, and in recirculating physical resources. This will be an inherently sustainable physical success for all humanity and all its generations to come. It can be accomplished not only within 10 years, but with the phasing out forever of all use of fossil fuels and atomic energy. Our technological strategy makes it incontrovertible that we can live luxuriously entirely on our daily sun radiation and gravity-produced income energy. The quantity of physical cosmic energy wealth as radiation arriving aboard planet Earth each minute is greater than all the energy used annually by all humanity. World Game makes it eminently clear that we have 4 billion billionaires aboard our planet, as accounted by real wealth, which fact is obscured from the public knowledge by the exclusively conceived and operated money game and its monopolised credit system accounting. Wealth is then the already organised human capability and know-how to employ the fixed, inanimate, planetary assets and omni-cosmically operative and only celestially emanating natural energy income in such a manner as to predictably cope with so many forward days of so many human lives by providing for their protection, comfort and nurturing, and for the accommodation of the ongoing development by humans of their as yet untapped store of intellectual and aesthetic faculties, while continually eliminating restraints and increasing the range and depth of their information accumulating experience. The success of all humanity can be accomplished only by a terrestrially comprehensive, technologically competent design revolution. This revolution must develop artifacts whose energy use efficiency not only occasions the artifact's spontaneous adoption by humanity, but therewith also occasions the inadvertent, unregretted abandonment and permanent obsolescence of socially and economically undesirable viewpoints, customs and practices. The design revolution must employ world-around, satellite-interlinked, data banks and computer-accomplished conversion of present-day, exclusively geocentric spaceship Earth wealth accounting by synchronising our planetary economic affairs with the cosmic, interstellar, intergalactic complex family of physical, time-energy behaviour laws demonstrated by astrophysics to be synergetically in economic governance, not only throughout our Milky Way's 100 billion stars, but also throughout the 2 billion additional such galaxies now discovered and observed by astrophysics within our phototelescopic range. Critical part. Yes.
There's a lot.
It's a lot.
Any other comments?
I think it, that this is actually outlining Bucky's perspective on cosmic accounting.
Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, ultimately, that's what he's getting to here.
Yeah.
How money is just a meaning and exchange, but is wealth and human capability is and know-how to employ the fixed inanimate planetary assets cosmically operative, only celestially emanating natural energy income in such a manner as to predictably cope so many forward days and so many lives by providing, protection, comfort, nurturing, and the accommodation. And I mean, I think that it essentially is, it's our know-how, it's our ability to, or it's our knowledge that allows us to provide these I don't want to call them assets, but these services to people. I mean, and I think too many times that we are actually, no, I know we tend to think of only in more the physical and monetary terms as far as assets go. Only how much something costs right now, given the circumstances that we're in. One thing that he brought up, Spaceship Earth, that I do remember from Spaceship Earth is how politicians and people will often say that something costs too much. And that if we were to really look at the real costs and the cosmic costs of a lot of the actions that we're taking, and I believe you speaking specifically about water in that particular instance, that the costs wouldn't be nearly as high as we make them out to be. He uses the example of desalinization in that example. But, that's also the idea of how energy moves, and it kind of gets into some of the same things that we're talking about here. That's my thought.
Thanks, Joe.
If you were to explain this to some ignorant, or a young person, a child, how will you put succinctly what John has read here, especially the definition of wealth, for the child to understand?
You'd start that it's not money.
Yes,
that's where you could start to say what it's not. I mean, and I think that one way of approaching it. And then start to distill what is of real value. And then that kind of starts to focus more on one of Bucky's principles of making, 100% or making things work for 100% of humanity. You can arrive at that. But if I were to explain that, it would be a process, almost a Socratic questioning that would go on. And it was basically starting with the idea of, what it's not. And I think, actually Aristotle has a very good approach to that as well. What is the value of the thing that you're actually pursuing? So I think that you also, by doing that, you transcend conventional wisdom and economic norms, because you start to imagine what else is possible. capital constrains us, especially within a system, as to what is. That if I were to explain that, what wealth is, I mean, I would, it would be a very long discussion. But it would also just start with the fact of what it isn't.
Kiyosaki summarized money by saying money is not real. Money is an idea.
Right.
That's actually the first axiom of his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Money is not real. It is an idea. And it is an idea that has kept us captive all this while.
Especially in countries where it's constantly losing value. Saw an
Right.
inflation rate for some third world country last week, which was unbelievable.
Yeah. But it is losing value everywhere. I mean, it is accentuated in places. But try to convince an American that to a reference that is relatively stable, the US dollar since 1971 has lost 95% of its value. Try to convince that. And this is the first degree users. Now, if you take
Right.
foreigner to the US, it's even harder to explain that. But it's a reality. And we saw it the other day by even trying to account things by real things, by material things. And we saw that, you know, we're discussing that and we say the price of a medium home relatively in the US since 1980, Joe, has gone up sevenfold?
Yeah.
In real terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the issue. We've been robbed. You know, nobody wants to say it. We've been robbed systematically by a system that we willingly or unwillingly vote into power. I'm not saying that people have to go out and become rebels, but we just have to be conscious of reality.
Right.
Yeah. So to convince somebody that that currency, that is whether national or reserve as the US dollars, is just an idea, it's very difficult.
I'm sorry, were you complete?
And then I also like in here the fact that Bucky talks always in his dualities. He says the know-how, the know what and the know-how combined metaphysically with the real accounted physical to create wealth. And wealth is always in what you have as reserve. Kelly will say leftovers, right? Is what in terms of your activity today, you are leftovers that allows you to sustain your future days, keeping the conditions that you have today. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So if you have your accumulated leftovers, how long can it sustain that population, keeping the living standards of the population at least equal to half they achieve while accumulating that wealth? That is progressive. That's why Bucky say you have, at this time it was 4 billion population in the world, 4 billion billionaires.
Okay, are we complete?
Yes.
Yep.
All righty. Let's
I-
continue.
Can I make a quick comment? I mean, I don't mean to
Sure.
delay it, but there's a
Sure.
really important point, I think that, well, let me just really quickly say, in the beginning of the book, I forget what chapter it is, we do cover very closely what the entrepreneur who's actually in it for to create something versus the businessmen that are just looking to actually monetize the
Yeah.
assets themselves. And he uses the example, I believe, if the Chrysler brothers are, people like that. And when they were no longer in charge of actually, building the machines, or, that they actually created, and the implications that came along with that. When you divorced people from from what they built, it was kind of had a negative impact on the overall product. But the other thing that I really want to comment on more than anything is what Manu just said, is how Bucky talks in dualities of knowing what and knowing how. And that's critical, because from there, you can get to another duality, which is knowing why and knowing what can change. So basically, you know what it is, you know how it works, but once you know why it works the way it does, the system works the way it does, then you can determine what can be changed within that framework. And I think that that's actually really interesting. It's another duality added on top of the what and how.
But further, Joe, that duality has two properties that are very, very important. It talks of wealth creation as a convolution of physical energy and metaphysical know what and know how. The two are convoluted like this to make the complex that you call energy, to make wealth. And you can only measure wealth in output energy, output per energy used, input. That's how you can account for it. Energy output per energy used. But two things important. He said the physical component of it is cosmically irreducible. That is constant. That's the first principle of thermodynamics. You cannot create energy. You can only transform it. So the amount of energy that we have in our cosmos is constant. But you are convoluting with something, and he said the metaphysical, know what and know how, can only increase. So if you take a constant and you convolute it to something that can only increase, what does it mean in reality? What does the product give? Can the product regress?
Yeah, I mean, it can.
No, it cannot.
Bucky's world. Not in Bucky's world, but it can, I think.
No, it cannot.
Right.
So wealth as defined by Bucky can only increase.
Right.
What is also increasing is the capacity to occult us of that, what is real wealth. That's the first point.
Right.
And how it is distributed. So a lot is wasted or not used for what it should be used for. Okay.
No, you're right. That was a very good point.
Yeah. Okay, want to continue, John?
Yes, critical path. Little planet Earth of our small star, the Sun, is not exempt from the inexorable synergetic integration of the complex of time, energy, electromagnetic, chemical structuring and destructuring's inventory of the intertransformative laws that govern the generalized regenerative economic investment system of the physical and metaphysical assets of what physics now finds to be an eternally regenerative, 100% efficient scenario universe. Simultaneously shooting the works of the biggest atomic explosions mutually deliverable by the most powerful long-range weapon systems of the most powerful political systems on planet Earth, designed to reinforce their exclusively politico-economic accounting concepts, can produce less than a visible twinkle in the galactic theatre. Obviously, universe is not saying we cannot afford another galaxy, let alone another star, let alone another terrestrial crew of cosmically invisible human information harvesting and processing functionaries whose problem-solving capabilities are being strangled by ignorant fears and selfishness aboard tiny planet Earth.
Let's pause right there just for a second.
The boots right in. Yeah,
That's such an insult, right?
I know. Yeah, it's intended to be very insulting.
Yeah, it's totally an insult. Whose problem-solving capabilities are being strangled by ignorant fears and selfishness aboard tiny planet Earth. So, and this is the frustrating thing for me about this whole thing. It's wonderful to learn about how the planet is regenerative, but between corporate capture and stupid people, I'm not sure how we're going to get through this. I mean, I think I see some amazing things now. The new X generation or Z generation or whatever they're calling it, they're not buying houses. They're not getting jobs. They're doing video games and making money on TikTok. It's like they're creating their own universe. And here are all these the grunch of the giants who are controlling these hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets, and these kids seem to be kind of existing somewhere in between. And we're suffering from ignorance, fears, and selfishness. Anyway, I just say
what does it serve to accumulate the so-called money in the metaverse?
Yeah.
When we starving?
When do we start doing what?
When we are starving. Because what that generation, I don't know if Z or Z,
yeah, whatever it is,
or whatever, is being fed with the idea that you can sit home with games, playing games, that is simulation, to create reality.
Yeah, they actually are making money doing that.
Yeah, but making money, we just saw that money is fake.
Yeah.
They're making money, they're creating inflation. So the know what can only create wealth when the know what and the know how, the know, what would they say, the know what and the know how are combined with physical energy. With a physical. You can, I mean, there are people who are selling title deeds in the metaverse, right? They're making a ton of money. There are people who are selling imaginary art objects into and making, I mean, the last one was what, $14 million? That somebody bought an art stuff. Fine. How does this solve my grinding physical problem of living? How does it heal my cancer?
Yeah.
How does it increase my mobility so that in old age I'm not in pain? How does it ensure that an infant born anywhere on this planet has a fair chance of having a productive or participating in the chorus of human, how do I call it? Human
affairs, human dealings.
Yes, or I'm going to say human opera. What is it? You know, symphony. How? And you are at the heart of a problem is that there is occultism in that, there's a world, and then you bring, like in the Bible, they say in the temple, there were curtains. And then you bring a big curtains that blind these people, these young people gaming, and trap them into something. You need to tear the curtain and to let light shine and reflect and radiate through these people. And that's how it can change. You have youth today, just growing, not knowing the value of physical work. They can't even turn a screw. we're gonna still use copper. How do you fix a plug at home?
You buy a new one.
You create inflation.
Yeah.
Right.
You buy a new
Oh.
plug.
So that was my point. I think all of that's fine. That's why Bucky says, know what, know how.
Right.
Combined with physical energy, physical and medical, physical combined. The physical is constant. The metaphysical, so physical is gravity. Metaphysical is radiation. And the metaphysical always expands. That's what it means. The metaphor is that it's always radiate. Radiation always radiates. So know where it's going, what it is that is radiating, know where it's going to transforming that is constant, that is energy for better uses. Yes, Joe?
I may be off on this. I was just thinking in my own mind, in the metaphysical, in the sense that radiation, I'm also thinking of it in terms of function. Like, what is the function is the metaphysical, in the sense that if we know what the physical is, the why and the how, well, then we start to understand at a higher level, what's the purpose behind something. And then, once we understand the purpose evolves. Is that an incorrect way to think about it?
The why and the how is metaphysical, it's not physical.
I thought that was, okay.
It's metaphysical. What you know of the physical is the storage. It's like, take the analogy of a brain. The brain stores so that we know that all, the copper of the world, the gold of the world, the silver of the world is always in recirculation, right?
Okay.
Use, diffuse, is recirculate. So that is constant. So we have patterns of circulation, of cycling of those resources. Mm-hmm. That's why in the Bucky's world, recycling is very important. What we call pollution. You have to know what it is and know what time frame you take for the use of whatever that you have in such a way that you can recycle. It means that if we're using solar today, we should always have thought about what we have to do with panels when they're disused. And make plan. That is what anticipatory design is. And make plan for the use. How do you recycle that? How can you extract and recycle and reuse?
Yeah, I misspoke. I meant the what and how, and I said why. I'm sorry about that.
Cool. Okay, shall we continue?
Yes.
Please. I think we're at scientific.
Were we above that?
Yeah, we just finished little tiny.
We're scientifically faithful. Yep. Scientifically faithful, synergetically integrated, time, energy, electrochemical process accounting, shows that it costs energetic universe more than $1 million to produce each gallon of petroleum, when the amount of energy is heat and pressure used for the length of time necessary to produce that gallon of petroleum is charged for at the New York Con Edison Company's retail kilowatt-hour rates for that much electricity. About 90% of all US, that was a study done by a geologist named Deschardonnay for Bucky in the 60s.
Yeah.
In real energy time know-how accounting of wealth, the planet Earth's 4 billion billionaires have not yet been notified of their good fortune. Their heritage probating is being postponed by the lawyers for the now inherently obsolete power structures of all kinds: religious, political, financial, professional, and academic, all of which exploitative systems are organised only to take biased advantage of all scarcities, all scarcities, physical and metaphysical. Evolution has now accelerated into revolution, which, if it goes bloody, will render all humanity extinct. But if it goes via the design revolution, all humanity will win. This is a new kind of revolution. It is one that, instead of revengefully pulling down the top fortunate few, will elevate all the heretofore unfortunates and the fortunates alike to new and sustainable heights of realized life, far superior to those previously tenuously attained by the most privileged few.
I go into Chuckarama about every 2 weeks with a friend of mine, and we sit there and marvel at how much food is out there. It's more food than most people eat. It's amazing. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's right. World Game comprehensively details that which individual humans must do to realize total success for all, and to do so within the critical time limit, before humanity passes the point of no return en route to self-extinction. Quickly reviewing the earliest large-scale wealth trading by humans, payments were made in kind, that is, with livestock that could be driven from here to there. Most valuable were cattle. When money, or heads of cattle, known as capital, capita meaning head in Latin, was loaned to enterprises, the latter's cattle were held by the lender as collateral until the enterprise venture was completed. The interim birth and growth of calves into cattle became the interest on the loan, to be paid by the borrower to the lender of the venture's working capital. Much later, metal money replaced the cattle. The concept of interest due to the loaner persisted, but since metal does not breed more metal, the interest paid reduces the real wealth value of the collateral when returned to the borrower. As the scale of long-distance trading exceeded the distances to which the cattle could be driven, the trading shifted primarily into waterborne ships. Ships carry far greater loads than can humans or beasts of burden. In the earliest days of international trading by ships, cattle were used as money. This became increasingly impractical, and the Phoenicians invented iron money in the form of miniature bullhorns. With metal as money, there swiftly developed a world-around preference for gold, due to its scarcity and easily recognised weight per volume, as well as its non-tarnishability. World trading ships carrying gold soon became prey to hijacking pilots. As mentioned in our Legally Piggly chapter, when the British Empire came into the world around and century enduring supremacy in 1805, its administrators made trade treaties with countries from every region of the world. Thereafter, both sides kept their trading on books of import-export accounts that were balanced annually, and the debtor nation paid the other by shifting their gold deposited in a London bank to the other's London bank, thus keeping the gold off the ships, ergo out of reach of small-time pirates. This is how what is known as the international balance of trade originated with the powerful industrializing countries of Europe, although rich in technical experience and inventive know-how, they lacked an adequate supply of fundamental metallic and other resources with which to realise the industrial potentials of their inventions. They were motivated to establish military supremacy over non-industrialised countries in Africa, South America and the Far East, within which countries the European scientists found the metal ores essential to their industries. Present-day Ghana provides a good example of the foregoing. Ghana is rich in bauxite, the iron from which aluminium is extruded by electrolytic refinement. Ghana also has the Volta River and its basin. The Ghanaians, however, did not know of the convertibility of bauxite into aluminium. Americans with vast capital came into Ghana, arranged to have all the inhabitants of the Volta River basin banished from that basin, then built one of the world's largest hydroelectric dams there. They used the electricity thus generated to convert the Ghanaian bauxite, which was just so much dirt to the Ghanaians, into aluminium ingots. These ingots were, and as yet are, shipped to America and Europe, where the aluminium is transformed into aeroplanes, cooking utensils, etc., and sold back to the Ghanaians and others around the world at such a markup in price that the Ghanaians' balance of import-export trading finds them ever deeper in debt to those countries that developed their natural resources. The societies in the manipulating countries call these source people the underdeveloped countries or the third world. There can be no planetary equity until all the sovereign nations are abolished and we have but one accounting system, that of the one family of humans aboard spaceship Earth. Ample food and growing capacity exist on our planet to feed well every world human. But the sovereign nations and their international trade balancing system and the individual hoarders of foods and other goods within the separate nations prevent the distribution of the foods. World Gaming discloses that humanity will perish on this planet if the sovereignty of nations is not abandoned, and if the world games world-around computerized time energy accounting is not forthwith inaugurated. The first step in bringing about the de-sovereignization will be the closing of the gaps in the world electric power grid.
Whoa, what just happened?
Hmm?
Something just happened.
That's right.
Oh,
There we go. De-sovereignization will be closing of the gaps in the world electric
World
power.
electric power grid. The world unifying electric power accounting will be the beginning of the omni-energy accounting for world economic management. World Game is
yeah. Thank you.
I think it's
World
absolutely,
Game.
yeah.
Is someone trying to make a comment here before we continue?
Yes, I was trying to make a comment.
Okay.
If we read what Bucky has just said, we understand it. I mean, the example of Ghana is not the worst in terms of that. The worst is, and in the world, the worst is in between two countries called Cameroon and Guinea. Guinea is at the far end of Africa, West Africa, Cameroon in the center, in the Gulf of Guinea. What happened is that there is the same scenario as in Ghana in terms of resource. There is bauxite in Ghana, and there in Guinea, and there are rivers. Because Guinea, I mean, all the big rivers from in West Africa, they flow from the highlands of Guinea. And then Cameroon is the same. But this is what the French did. In Guinea, they mine bauxite, they ship it thousands of miles east to Cameroon, where they have a refinery. And they export from Cameroon aluminium to the world and to Europe. that is the first, an example that is even more vivid than the one that was talked about, the Volta in Ghana. The second thing that he says here, which is important, and that no government of the world here would tolerate, is that you have to abolish what we call nations and have one unit of accounting, that is energy. And the prime energy that we use in the world is electricity, power. And it's feasible to interconnect all the grids of the world, like they've done it for fiber around the world. Today, when we send data metaphysically, I'm in Africa, in Cape Town, I'm sending data next door to me. Truly, that data that I'm sending to Namibia next door to me might have gone around the world to go to Ghana, to Namibia at zero cost. It might have bounced in Australia on the server, went to San Francisco, came back east to Brazil, and then in Namibia next door. The same can be done for electricity. And if the power grid, if we concentrated on building this cable that can transport energy intercontinentally, knowing that it is for use. So when you are sleeping in Australia, somebody can be using electricity generated in Australia in South Africa. Because when you are sleeping, we are up. I mean, the time difference between Cape Town and Perth is what, 6 hours, John? 7 hours?
Something like that, yes.
Yes. So I remember well when we were having a meeting, especially with Kelly, 3 p.m. in Cape Town will be 11 p.m. in Brisbane. So that's what he's talking about. You have to debunk all the thing that we build around, which are impediment to the real flow of energy that we can't stop. We can only occur around the world.
There is some.
Pardon, Joe?
I was going to say there is something even outside the nation state that Bucky's missing, and that is the concentration of capital. And that is a global phenomenon too. Not that it's real in and of itself, but it does have a way of impacting how we allocate resources. That's all.
What do you call concentration of capital, Joe?
Reliance on billionaires.
Well, he already said that he's not playing that game. He says so. He said money is fake. He's not playing that game. Okay.
I agree.
So if you are the Pope of that system, and you actually know what it is, you will never allow the commoner to know what it is.
Right.
It's on purpose that money is not taught.
Right.
It is not taught at school. Money should be a subject like geography. Then discuss from very early age at school, and then people will know what real money is. If it's a unit of exchange, it can only be a unit of energy because you're exchanging energy for energy. One form of energy for another one. Okay.
Well, I think that by not calling it a unit of energy exchange, by just calling it a unit of exchange, if it were being called colloquially energy exchange, I think would make a big difference in terms of just each human being coming out of their ignorance, as he's already proclaimed, and understanding the fact that money is energy and that they're using their energy to grow other people's companies and these other people's companies are just hoarding the energy. You know, I mean, he's saying all along here, we've had serious symptoms of ephemeralization. We're making more and more energy with less and less resource, and all of that is just going upstairs to the giants. It's not, people don't understand, you know, their energy. They don't understand energy. Everything is energy. So,
but when you say the first step is to bring in about this sovereignization, it's scared to the shit. I mean, you know, anybody with whatever power in the structure that we have today, who accept that? It's not big countries, not small countries. The potentate would never accept it. I'm talking about in the tiniest of countries and the poorest in the world. It's so difficult to have it. They will not relinquish it. They will not accept it.
Agreed. So let's continue. He's talking about using this electric power accounting.
Yeah.
So let's see what that does.
So,
I think-
was it World Gaming discloses? No, World Game is a continuing scientific research and physical prototyping development. It is devoted to progressive discovery of how most efficiently and expeditiously to employ 1, the total world around resources, 2, total accumulated knowledge, and 3, the total already produced technological tooling of spaceship Earth, all 3 to the ever-advancing equal advantage of all its present and future passengers. World Game is the antithesis of World War Gaming, as played by the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the world's most powerful sovereign nations' respective military, air, and naval establishments. Predicated upon the British Empire's post-Magellan, historically first spherical world-around empire and its first inventory of vital statistics of the world, as accumulated in 1805 by the East India Company College's Professor of Political Economics, Thomas Malthus, and his findings therefrom, which we have already described. World War Gaming, in contradistinction to World Gaming, assumes Thomas Malthus's theory that there exists a lethal inadequacy of life support on our planet. World War Gaming also assumes Darwin's survival only of the fittest to be ruling evolution. As already mentioned in Chapter 3, this is why the United States and the USSR have jointly spent over $200 billion annually for the last 30 years, $6 trillion total, to buy science's most effective means of destroying their respective enemies. World War Gaming is the consequence. World War Gaming employs the evolutingly advancing, most comprehensive and incisive, scientifically and technologically feasible capabilities to develop and mass-produce weaponry systems that will ever more swiftly devastate all enemy life support artifacts and kill ever more enemy people at ever greater ranges in ever shorter periods of time. In contradistinction to the inherently vast wastage of World War Gaming's objectives, World Gaming takes advantage of ephemeralization, technology's ever higher strength per weight metallic alloys and chemistries, and ever more comprehensively incisive and inclusive electronic circuitry performances per volumes and weights of apparatus used, and employs ever progressively less weight and volume of materials, ergs of energy, and seconds of time per each technical function accomplished, and employs those ever-improving functions to produce ever more advanced living-ry artifacts instead of the killing-ry weapons of World War Gaming. World Game assumes evolutionary stages of advancement of its successive systems of production, distribution, maintenance, design improvement, world around integrating, precision tool automating, and mass producing of its ever-advancing living-ry service. All these successive prototype stages of development are based on my 52-year maintained omni-history inventory of world resources, both physical and metaphysical, and my inventory of technical trendings and progressively evoluting human needs, both group and individual. World Games now clearly demonstrated capability to produce the higher than ever before experienced living standards, means an ever healthier, ever less environmentally restrained, ever better informed and comprehensively educated, ever more thoughtfully, spontaneously and cooperatively productive total humanity operating as an ever more mutually inter-trusting and inter-considerate world family, living in an ever more generous and less wasteful way, at an ever more far-sighted and comprehensively anticipatory level, engaged in ever more constructive initiative-taking and cooperative inter-support of one another's initiatives and explorations, and ever more truly omni-loving, classless, raceless human family of Earth's planetarians, all engaged competently in local universe information harvesting and in local universe problem solving in successful support of the 100% integrity of eternally regenerative universe, that being the functioning universe that World Game assumes, occasioned the inclusion of humans and their generalized principles, discovering minds in the design of universe. Okay, yep. Concentrate on living, not killing. Critical path. Technical artifacts invented and produced by humans employing generalized scientific principles of universe, such as the principles of leverage, optics, magnetics, mass attraction, etc., to cope successfully with life challenges varying among lethal, difficult, tolerable, or benign environmental conditions, constitute any and all differences existing between the life activities of originally naked humans in a few mid-ocean tropical gardens of Eden on planet Earth 3 million years ago, and the lifestyles of humans today in skyscraper cities or in spacesuits exiting from their moon-landed, space-rocketed capsule to bring back to Earth sample rocks from the moon environment, all the while being intimately satellite relay televised in colour to 1 billion people on a planet 320,000 miles away from the moon-landed astronauts, the 1 billion viewers being situated in their environment-controlled homes around planet Earth, as those viewing Earthian billions and the moon-landing astronauts alike are being vitally sustained by foods grown elsewhere than where they live, which foods are preserved and shipped in environment-controlling cans and packages, or in artifact-produced frozen or dehydrated condition. World Games design science employs all the known generalized principles and technical inventions and invents others where artifacts adequate for solving the newly emerging and foreseeably arising problems do not as yet exist. World Gaming, incorporating ever more performance per function and higher energy efficiencies with ever less pounds and volumes of resources, continually redesigns the artifacts and technical systems employing those ever-improving materials. World Gaming recognises that there are no unnatural materials. If nature permits their chemical element associabilities, the materials and their functionings are natural. If nature does not permit or bring about their associability, they cannot exist. The substances permitted by nature may be unfamiliar to humans, but they are never unnatural, i.e. synthetic. World Gaming notes that humans' fear of the unfamiliar often prevents realisation of humanity's imminent acquisition of improved living conditions for everyone. World Game 205. World Gaming takes advantage of the ever-changing world resource patterns, such as that of steel and other metals, scrapped from obsolete buildings and machinery, as the latter's designs are made obsolete by the latest military and naval-produced hardware. Scrap of the discontinued hardware constitutes new high-grade ore mines existing entirely above ground. As an example, there are no tin mines in the United States. All tin came originally either from England, Malaysia, Bolivia, or Tanganyika. Tin was first used for making bronze, then pewter utensils, then for tinning bathtubs and cans, next for babbiting of machinery bearings, soldering, outperformed by newer, more effective technologies, all of these early tin uses became obsolete, and that tin was recovered. Since 1940, US aeronautical production tooling has involved so much tin in its soft tooling phases that the inventory of ever remelted tin of the US aircraft industry and its swift design change accommodating soft Kirksite tooling is now 1980 greater than that remaining in the world mines. Ergo, the US requires no further purchases of foreign tin.
You got that? I just moved it. So there's foreign tin right there. And having originally...
No tin mines. The US has an above ground source of tin that is now the world's largest tin mine. World resource maps showing only the tin in the ground mines are completely misinforming. World wargaming and those economic advisors of leading governments use only the in-the-ground mine data. As noted earlier, there are 100 dots on the Dymaxion sky-ocean map, which is always used as the playing field in playing world game. Each dot represents 44 million people, that being 1% of the 4.4 billion humans now, 1980, aboard spaceship Earth. Haven't we just exceeded 7 billion? So in
I think you just
43 years, 8 is it?
8.
8, we've exceeded 8. So in 43 years, we've added 3.6 billion. We've nearly doubled the population in 43 years. No wonder so many people are terrified.
It's supposed to start going down, though, at some point.
Yes, it is, because that's right, because of the fact that very few families have 2.1 children or more. A lot of families are having no children. So, the biggest problem in the world is in Japan, I think, in this area. The Japanese population is shrinking and they're quite concerned about it. But China's population has now reached the point where it's reducing rather than increasing. India's is still rapidly increasing. Some countries are rapidly increasing because they're having higher than 2.1 births per family. But Australia, for example, is less than 2.1 new births for each couple. So except for immigration, our population would be decreasing. But yes, that's right. So
Just to mention Japan.
Are you accepting Indians?
Hmm?
Are you accepting Indians in Australia?
We have lots of Indians in Australia.
But more?
Some, yes, depends on their qualifications and the visa they're applying for.
I'm just teasing you in regard to what Becky said.
Well, I listened to a podcast called All In by some real entrepreneur dudes, joint venture guys and angel capitalized. Every week they complain about how Australia is getting all the smart Indians and America's immigration policies are so behind time that we're losing, whereas there's a big giant foreign brain drain. They come to a brain drain. They come to America, they learn how to be great computer scientists, and they go to Australia because we don't allow them to stay in America. Crazy.
That's right. In fact,
but Steve Jobs' father was not a genius.
It isn't about being a genius, it's about getting educated.
No, I'm saying he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was just a guy.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I don't.
What I'm trying to say in the taking your perspective is that if you account by the talent that is attracted, even you say, okay, you want somebody like that, it doesn't guarantee, right, the future income of a person. I'm talking about energy genius release in the country.
Yeah.
The most miserable can engender the genius.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So all what we bring in as our accounting really will always pair in relationship to what is real. And what is real is that energy hasn't got any distinction of where it is everywhere. And that we are energy. And we are to account by energy use to energy output. That's all.
I want to say one thing about Japan. I have a friend, and we're talking about going to Japan and renting a mansion for $300 a year. There
What?
are abandoned properties all over Japan because the population is so decreased. And so we're talking about going and renting one of those mansions for $600 a year for a mansion. Jeez.
What's the energy bill?
Mm-hmm.
I think the energy bill, there's trees all over the property. I think they have fireplaces. We'll just go back to the Stone Age, you know, live in a Japanese mansion and have a belly, one of those iron belly fireplaces. Okay. Where are we here?
We just after that paragraph, you know.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
where we
we're
are?
above that. No. Up where it says 1% of the 4.4 billion humans now 1980 aboard spaceship Earth. So we're about to start. Yes, each dot is
Good.
located at the geometrical center for the 44 million people it represents. As the dots show, approximately 90% of humanity live north of the equator. The 10% who live south of the equator live very close to it. Humanity is a northern hemisphere creature and is now about to integrate over the North Pole into a one-town world. We have entered a north-south air and space vehicle world traffic pattern and are swiftly abandoning yesterday's east-west ship and railway pattern. As the doing more work with less pounds of material invisible revolution keeps advancing, we have ever more powerful and greater weight and capacity air vehicles to carry the ever more efficient and lighter machinery and structures, which classes of goods were once so heavy as formerly to be shippable only by sea or rail. As mentioned earlier, all the great rivers of the earth are clearly shown on the world map. The source of these rivers' water supply to 54% of humanity comes from a vast frozen reservoir atop the Himalayas. Only a small fraction of this potential water power has as yet been dammed for hydroelectric generation and irrigation system development. With such hydro development, the 54% of humanity in China, Southeast Asia, and India will all become physically prosperous in high degree. Likewise, the great, as yet undeveloped hydroelectric and irrigation systems of the other continents are clearly demonstrable as holding high standards of living to be realised for all humanity.
Okay. If you want to take a break, John, Joe would.
I'm right.
Here.
I'm right. It is
So we have-
engineeringly demonstrable that there is no known way to deliver energy safely from one part of the world to another in larger quantities and in swifter manner than by high voltage conducted electricity. For the first half of the 20th century, the limit distance of technically practical deliverability of electricity was 350 miles. As a consequence of the post-World War II space program's employment and advancement of the invisible metallurgical, chemical, and electronics more with lessing technology, 25 years ago, it became technically feasible and expedient to employ ultra-high voltage and superconductivity, which can deliver electrical energy within a radial range of 1,500 miles from the system's dynamo generators. To the World Games seminar of 1969, I presented my integrated world-around high-voltage electrical energy network concept, employing the new 1,500-mile transmission reach. This network made it technically feasible to span the Bering Straits, to integrate the Alaskan, USA, and Canadian networks with Russia's grid, which had recently been extended eastward into northern Siberia and Kamchatka, to harness with hydroelectric dams the several powerful northwardly flowing rivers of northeasternmost USSR. This proposed network would deliver the daylight half of the world with the nighttime half. Electrical energy integration of the night and day regions of the earth will bring all the capacity.
Holy shit, pardon me.
That's all right. . Don't hear
Is it higher than that?
graphs of each of the world. No. Here it is. We were thus overnight doubling. Where were you? Flowing rivers. Electrical energy integration of the night and day regions of the Earth will bring all the capacity into use at all times, thus overnight doubling the generating capacity of humanity, because it will integrate all the most extreme night and day peaks and valleys. From the Bering Straits, Europe and Africa will be integrated westwardly through the USSR and China. Southeast Asia, India will become network integrated southwardly through the USSR. Central and South America will be integrated southwardly through Canada, the USA and Mexico. Graphing of each of the world's 150 nations, showing their 20th century
There we go.
of inanimate energy production per capita of their respective populations, together with graphs of those countries' birthplaces, show without exception that the birth rates decrease at exactly the same rate that the per capita consumption of inanimate electrical energy increases. The world's
Hang on.
population,
Pardon me.
the world's population will stop increasing when and if the integrated world electrical energy grid is realised. The grid is the World Games' highest priority objective. Yeah, Bucky said the biggest single impact on birth rate is the availability of electricity.
Right.
Yeah. And here's a couple charts showing El Salvador, Spain, USSR, North America, and the world.
For example, we had two billionaires in Australia in partnership to generate solar power in the north of Australia and to ship that by undersea cable to Singapore to supply the energy needs of Singapore and other neighbouring areas. They had a falling out and one of them's now taken control of the project. The one who's taken control of it,
Yeah, the
Atlassian, yes. Mike Cannon-Brookes and Andrew Forrest were the two billionaires. They were in partnership. They had a falling out. Mike Cannon-Brookes has taken control of the project. So he's the one who bought a major shareholding in an electricity company to put pressure on them to phase out coal-fired power stations faster. And he's achieved that. He led to a real board shake-up. Interesting man.
He did that very quick.
Oh, yeah, he did. There is no single power source around Earth so great as that of the wind, but winds do not blow in synchronization with the time patterning of human needs. Generating electricity when the wind blows and feeding it into batteries and withdrawing the charge when needed involves a 75% in and out loss of the electrical energy. Since 1975, when it was an efficient but new practice, all 50 United States have been required by federal regulation to allow individual windmill owners to feed their wind power generated electric current directly into the local utility power lines. The individuals get credited for their input on their monthly electricity bills. This practice was developed by Windworks of Wisconsin, which in turn was founded by a mid-1960s World Game prototyping operation. It has been found that within a 100-mile radius, a wind is always blowing. Windmills installed around the world, converting their direct current into alternating current and feeding the electric energy into the world network, can harvest the planet Earth's prime daily energy source, income source, the wind, and adequately supply all the world's energy needs. With the world's prime resources and its people and its potential integrabilities evidenced by World Games World Map, obvious design science inventions are called for, such as a backbone irrigation canal from the Himalayas leading south along the central highlands of the Indian continent, where with all the frequently devastating droughts would be eliminated for India's 1/8 of all humanity. With such comprehensive viewability as is provided by World Game and its Sky Ocean World Map, it is quickly realised that, with a few rare exceptions, humanity needs to do very little further mining. the metals already scrapped from obsolete machinery and structures, which recirculate on a sum total of all metals average every 22 years, are now able to do much more work with ever less weight per each given function with each recirculation, as to make the present scrap resources of almost all metals adequate to take care of all humanity's forward needs. While World Game discovers and identifies the world income energy sources, it is also concerned with using the energy income in the most efficient technologies in producing liquid fuel energy powered engines. World Games design science must pay attention to the fact that reciprocating engines, such as are installed in all our automobiles, are only 15% efficient. Turbines are 30% efficient, jet propulsion engines are 65% efficient, and fuel cells are 80% efficient. Due to inefficiently designed technical equipment and building technology, the overall mechanical efficiency of the United States economy is, in 1980, only 5%. This means that for every 100 units of energy consumed, 95 units go unused, down the drain. World Game 209, using only proven and now available technology, it is feasible to increase the overall efficiency to 15%. This alone would reduce our overall energy consumption by 2/3. There are two kinds of objective engineering designing: objects that consist of a plurality of intercomplementarily moving parts, machinery, and those that do not, structures. Mechanical efficiency denotes the percent of work effectiveness accomplished by the machine per units of energy consumed. Structural efficiency relates to the function, strength, and durability accomplished per each unit of weight of material involved. Humanly occupied environment controlling structures have many energy wasting features, all of which are highly correctable. In designing the environment controlling structural enclosures, World Games design science heeds the following facts. 1. Spherical structures enclose the greatest volume with least surface. B. Geodesic spherical structures, which are inherently omnitriangularly framed entirely of great circle chords, give the strongest structure per weight of materials employed. C. Amongst the geodesic great circle spherical structures, those based on the discontinuous compression, continued tension, tensegrity, icosahedra, give the most environmental enclosure per pound and the volume of material employed. Every time the linear dimension of a symmetrical structure is doubled, i.e. 1 minus plus 2, the surface area of the enclosure increases at a 2 to the second power rate, i.e. 2, while the environment controlling structure's volume increases at a 2.
This should be superscripted.
2 to the third power
Is
rate.
this some kind of proof? Like, is this actually accurate?
Wherefore, every time a
Yes.
geodesic dome's diameter is doubled, it has 8 times as many contained molecules of atmosphere, but only 4 times as much enclosing shell. Ergo, each progressive doubling of dome diameters halves the amount of enclosing surface through which each molecule of interior atmosphere may either gain or lose energy as heat. Whole cities are most efficiently enclosed under one large dome. Every time we enclose a geodesic dome within a greater diametered geodesic dome, whose radially concentric interspacing is greater than the depth of the frost penetration of that area, while at the same time avoiding use of any metal interconnections between the inner and outer dome structuring, the heat losses and gains of the innermost domes are halved in respect to those of non-domed over domes of the same dimensions. Okay, so what he means is if you've got 2 layers of dome, you've got insulation, so you use less energy.
Yeah.
If in producing the geodesic domes within domes, we make them transparent or translucent on their sunny side, and opaque and inwardly reflecting, that should be reflecting, I think, on the non-sunny side, they will entrap progressively greater amounts of sun energy and heat for longer and greater periods of time as the diameters are increased. Critical path: if growing vegetation, i.e. trees, vegetables, corn, sugar, ground cover, etc., is planted within the dome, the photosynthetic conversion of sun radiation into hydrocarbon molecules will chemically and simultaneously convert the monoxide gases given off by human occupants into human supporting air atmosphere, thus eliminating all necessity for windows or air conditioning apparatus, and 2, harvest hydrocarbon molecule trapped energy as food or as fuel alcohol energy. H, if the wind drag of buildings is employed to turbine convert wind power into tanks stored compressed air, the latter may be stored within the space between the inner and outer dome's skins as low pressure atmosphere in quantities adequate to pneumatically and evenly distribute any controlled outer cover loadings throughout all the
What's that?
Tensional, all the tensional.
Where am I?
Throughout all the
John,
tension.
Yeah, throughout all the tensional components of the geodesic tensegrity structures. As the sun's radiation is outwardly and diffusingly reflected by the dome structure's convex outer surface, vertical thermal column movements of the sun-heated inside atmosphere develop, which spirally rising columns of heated atmosphere will draw air out from under the dome's large lower edge summertime openings, which voluminous outward drafting in turn pulls air into the dome through the small cross-sectioned ventilators at the dome's apex. This pressure differential between the small air entry and the large exhaust openings produces the Bernoulli chilling effect, which in hot weather will swiftly cool the dome's interior atmosphere. World Game has proven this in geodesic domes at the African equator.
Let's read the. Let's look at the illustration and read the cut lines.
Okay. Illustration depicts use of Bernoulli.
I tried to make it bigger, and as a result,
That's right. Illustration depicts use of the Bernoulli effect as applied to a geodesic dome. Upward draft is caused by solar heating of outside surface, which then heats nearby surrounding air. The warm air rises, creating a thermal column. Air is sucked out of the large openings at the ground level, causing reduced pressure inside the dome. Reduced pressure causes air near the top vent to rush in through the small opening, increasing the flow of air through the small opening cools the incoming air.
yeah, and that shows how it circulates around.
Interesting.
Yeah, cool. I think we left off at J.
That's right. It is clearly demonstrable that the conversion of wind power by dome within dome drag-operated air turbines will power the compressing and tank storage of air and will thus produce ample power to operate a pneumatic tool system for all mechanical operating needs within the dome. Pneumatic tools avoid the human electrocution perils of electrically operated domestic technology. Sum totally, it is now demonstrable that properly designed domes within domes become energy harvesting machines that provide more energy than is needed for the high standard life support of their human occupants, wherefore such building machines may become exporters of energy in variously stored and controlled forms such as alcohol. It has been satisfactorily demonstrated that the reflective concave inner surface of the geodesic dome within dome environment controlling shells will act as parabolic sun radiation concentrators, focusing the sun radiation income into heating of a circularly arced liquid containing pipe, whereby the sun's heat may be stored liquidly in vacuum enclosed subterranean tanks for subsequent use in a variety of ways. The byproduct heat from the air compressing is used to heat water stored in the same reservoir.
I had friends who were so excited about this book. I went out back in the 70s, we were doing straw bale construction. And we were all into this alternative housing, the Earthship idea with the spare tires and everything. I mean, this makes so much sense, doesn't it? And certainly it works on, I can't remember the planet in Star Wars, but I think Luke Skywalker was raised by his uncle in a dome just like this.
I think what is explaining here is the miniature of what our Earth and Sun is. Because we have the solid Earth, the biosphere, and all of this. So these are domes in domes. If you take whatever you are on the Earth and you are looking towards the sun. What appears is dome in dome, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have all the principles, like the expansion of air, compressed, expanded to create that cool, the circulation and all these things. I think that's one of the things that he's saying, is that just replicate, just try to understand and replicate what exists in nature. And it says somewhere, if nature permits, it can be done. If nature doesn't permit it, it cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I think we can finish this kind of subsection here if we keep going.
I think we need to wrap up then. Where were we up to? M? Yes. No, we were before that.
Were we?
We hadn't done the bit above M. I think we might have been.
Yeah, we left off as alcohol.
L. It has been satisfactorily demonstrated that the reflective concave inner surface of the geodesic dome within dome environment controlling shells will act as parabolic sun radiation concentrators, forcing the sun radiation income into heating of a circularly arced liquid containing pipe, whereby the sun's heat may be stored liquidly in vacuum enclosed subterranean tanks for subsequent use in a variety of ways. The byproduct heat from the air compressing is used to heat water stored in the same reservoir. World Games Design Science treats the tensegrity structured dome within dome geodesic environment controls as comprehensive energy harvesting, storing and exchanging devices. Typically, the vegetation most efficiently employed includes the growth of corn and the winged bean in the sunlight area and mushrooms in the hot, dark areas. Radio telephones and income energy generators render the dwelling machine semi-autonomous. Two sanitary devices, as described earlier, render the environmental controls independent of water supply lines and sewage carry-away systems. The fog gun for cleaning the human skin and all other surfaces with a high-pressure air gun into whose airstream small amounts of atomised water are fed. The carton packaging and mechanised conveyaway system of human wastes to be delivered to elsewhere located fertiliser or gas generating works, or to anaerobic methane gas and dry fertiliser generating equipment of the dwelling machines themselves. These two devices eliminate all wet plumbing, which has been responsible for breeding most of all the infectious bacteria heretofore entering human abodes, while also eliminating the infectious splashback feature of water-filled bowls and their water flush toilets. World Game finds that wealth measures the degree to which humans have used their minds to discover scientific principles and have used those principles to invent artifacts and environment controlling and implementing complex artifact systems, which, as powered only by daily energy income, can be demonstrably shown to be able to take care of given numbers of people for given numbers of forward days. Taking care of humans means to provide them with pleasingly, healthily, satisfactorily stabilized environmental conditions under all of nature's known potential variables, while adequately feeding them, giving them medical care, increasing their degrees of freedom, and increasing their technological options. See Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. As already mentioned, World Game finds that the world's wealth and its medium of interchanges, i.e. the world's monetary accounting systems, have been divorced from one another. Those bankers and insurance company managements that have learned how they may legally employ, to their own exclusive advantage, the vast magnitudes of savings of real wealth deposited with them by those who have produced the wealth and who are quite unaware that those deposits are taken out of the bank and loaned out at swiftly increasing interest rates to others.
In such quantities.
In such quantities as to underwrite the magnitude of purchasing, production, and sale of products that can be produced only by the involvements of such vast magnitudes of real wealth tokens, and may therefore overpower all wealth capabilities of any of the individual depositors of the savings account deposits of the real wealth products. World gaming requires progressive inventorying of condensed recalls of already introduced major concepts and their integration with one another, plus additional new concepts to produce newer and greater synergetic realization.
Cool. That kind of ends the section.
I think, yeah, we need to stop there.
Yeah, me too.
Congratulations, John. I mean, there was a
That
need for.
was a bit of a strain, but anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy to read that.
No.
Often the mind starts to think, well, hang on now, where am I?
Exactly. Exactly. So that concludes tonight. I'm going to put a marker right there, and we're ready for some takeaways. So, John, I'm going to give you a chance to rest your voice. Joe, how are you feeling, and what's your takeaway today?
You know, my I'm feeling great, and I appreciate everybody being here. You know, what my takeaway is honestly is a new way of looking at capital, if you want to even call it that, and just looking at energy, and how Bucky thought about energy. You know, some of the equations that he had put in there were actually pretty interesting. But one of the statements that really caught my attention, where he was talking about it almost like an on-demand kind of model, where, you know, you go to sleep in one country or one part of the country, and the other part of the country would be able to use the energy at that particular moment in time. I would have to go back and look at it specifically, but it sounded like a really efficient approach to managing energy. And thinking about the world as interconnected is, you know, it's a very cosmopolitan idea, and something more to be thought about a little bit more. You know, it's you know, it's just I think you know, Bucky was able to see these things in cosmic terms. And the more that we actually go through this, the more we're going to be able to see what he was actually, how they're still applicable today. And so I got a couple of those insights today. Especially even just the way I like the question that was posed to me as to how to think about money. And if I were to explain it to somebody, what would my approach be? So overall, I have a couple different takeaways. So Manu, how are you feeling? What are you taking away?
I'm feeling good, and it's always refreshing to go over these things. And every time that we go over them, you discover new dimensions that you didn't understand at last iteration, reasoning. And the exchanges are always enriching, and I'm grateful that we sincerely exchange this morning and this evening to you guys, in America, and this afternoon to John. My biggest lesson is not to focus on money.
Right.
Right? Personally, not focus on money. Focus on real things. I'll give an example. Say, for example, in the property game, and say your objective is your retirement. Say your vehicle is the 2-1 unit in condos or in whatever. Well, in the terms of today, in anticipating what you have to do, account for the size of what you have in terms of number of units to ensure your objective as of today, isn't it? I'm just talking about accounting, personal accounting. That will allow you to bypass, actually to cushion the crushing and malfeasant effect of inflation. What I'm saying is that if you, Joe, your objective was to accumulate 10 units to allow you to exercise your mind to doing other stuff, that is, will ensure your income. Concentrate on getting those 10 units in the most effective way. That is not prisoner to debt, right? You have those, then you can do something else. But amongst all, it says that by observing and understanding how nature works, we can design more effectively, right? And with less complications, systems, right? That allow us to vastly improve at the least cost our standard of living. And for this, you have to be a globalist. You need to understand to play the world games. Or to the least, you need to be able to have an integrative something in the largest extent that you can locally. You say, for example, the US on their own could increase the efficiency from 5% to the world, was the quantum was 15%, right?
15%, yeah.
Yes, just by adapting rules and way of seeing that was more of the US as a whole, rather than the state of a county, and playing it that way. So that's my biggest takeaway. It is feasible. We need to use our accounting, real accounting of a physical, and use the metaphysical know-how, know-how to play into with the physical to design things that improve the standard of living. And that takes a kind of revolution that is completely change of paradigm with which we are living today. So that's my biggest takeaway. Otherwise, I'm grateful that we made it, and that we made it very, very interesting today. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Let's see. I'm happy to go now, and John, you can kind of nail it down when we get done.
Sure.
I put in the chat. I heard something amazing because there's actually a period in the development of the earth in terms of over the last 100 million years called the Carboniferous period. During this Carboniferous period, there were large tree-like plants that evolved and died and just laid down on top of each other and died. And fungi had not evolved with the ability to eat the lignin that was the fiber in those plants. So for 100 million years or 80 million years, these plants were growing and dying, growing and dying, growing and dying, and built up what is now our coal. But if the fungi had been there to eat it, we wouldn't have any coal.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny to me. I just think it's amazing. And I hear all these numbers from Bucky, and this was back in the 80s, and it's real frustrating to me how the Giants have maintained control, and people seem to be so ignorant and so unwilling. Like, I make a point of not flushing my toilet. When I flush my toilet, I make a point of how much water I use. I often will, not often enough probably, but I'll often get my hair wet in the shower, turn off the water and wash my hair. Then I turn the water back on. I mean, it just seems that we're just so wasteful of resources. We don't value our own ability to produce wealth. Individuals don't. We're addicted to consuming, and we bought into the story that it's okay to have a below minimum paying job and buy stuff. I don't know, boggles my mind. So I hope there's a future for the world. John, how are you feeling? What are you taking away from tonight?
I'm feeling tired, actually. The brain's a bit overloaded.
Yeah.
I feel frustrated because this is Bucky more than 40 years ago, hoping that within 10 years we'll see huge advances. But the misinformation and the control of resources and the failure to act in the best interests of all involved. We have governments that pontificate. In Australia, we're complaining about the extreme shortage of housing. We've got a real shortage of housing here. And you can look back and see how we've created the situation, but then the politics get involved. Instead of just saying, look, we're going to build transportable housing, we're going to prefabricate it, we're going to erect it on site. I've talked about the My Home project. You can erect one of those in 24 hours. You put them on government land with a long-term lease. They're transportable. You can pack them up and take them away at the end of the lease. Stuff like that. And we insist on building brick and tile homes with huge amount of waste material carted off the site. If you built it in a factory, far less waste. Bucky talked about air transportable delivery on site 50 years ago. And things like that, just simple changes that people's paradigms, they don't want to change anything, creatures of habit. And we're stifling ourselves and killing the planet in the process. It's so frustrating. Anyway.
Well, I'm with you.
It's great to be informed. It's great to read Bucky, to be reminded, to be re-informed. And I talk to people about these things, and some of them switch off and some of them listen. And so just got to hope you get through to a few people who can have an influence.
Yeah. Well, cool beans.
Anyway, still good. It's good to catch up with you guys. It's good to study Bucky. Yeah.
It is.
And I think that Anne is lucky to not be here tonight because it didn't have much. Last week was so powerful for Anne. I mean, every paragraph had something for Anne. So she picked the right one not to come to.
On the contrary, I think that you have been very interesting for Anne.
Me too.
In terms of how she positioned, her education initiative, and how it is, to assess and then to understand the powers that will be against what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because here it's laid open.
Yeah.
This is what it is. It says there's got to be, you don't know, when we started today, when John started reading, he said there's got to be abolition of all statehood.
He did. He said, get rid of all these sovereign countries.
Yeah, that is big, a big statement.
That's worse than communism. That's anarchy.
Not if it's people working together for mutual benefit.
And no
Right.
wonder he wasn't popular with the Dulles brothers.
But understand what he said. It's always Becky never talk about one phase. He's always talking at a minimum of two. He has been clear. Abolish that understanding that we are, or the world game exposes everything. That's why he start with what is that unity? It is the world map as it is.
Yeah.
And so we are in that world, we have to play the game as it is.
Right.
So by exposing the world map, it showed the incongruity of a statehood.
Yeah.
What are you guarding when the thing is flowing independent on you?
Yeah.
If we're talking about atmosphere and our biosphere, I can pollute it from wherever I am.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah. And 2 weeks ago, we read about his idea of building a dome inside of a dome to show people the world and show them where they are in the world and how everything is in one place. It's just amazing. Okay, guys, see you next week.
So are you continuing with Thanksgiving still? Today and tomorrow? The Thanksgiving weekend. Are you continuing?
I don't know what we're doing. You mean on Wednesday?
No, I'm saying Thanksgiving started with you on
Oh.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Oh, I can every day.
Also
is
over the
Thanksgiving.
weekend, you know, like,
Every
are
day
you
is
continuing?
Yes, I certainly am.
Is Monday continuing?
Absolutely. I have a Thanksgiving list. I go through it every freaking day.
Okay.
Yeah, life is amazing. And I'm thankful for you guys and John, Joe, and Manu for your contribution. Thank you so much, guys.
John, is that from is the picture that you have in your background from John Jackson?
No, that is actually painted by Western Australian woman artist named Diana Johnson. And it was my gift to my wife for her 40th birthday.
Beautiful.
Okay. It's fantastic.
A landscape of the north of Western Australia.
Yeah, it is very nice.
Very nice.
Where'd you get your balloons, Joe?
I don't know where they came from. I really don't. I had no idea.
They just popped up, dude. Usually
They
that
just
happens.
popped up.
That's amazing. Is it your birthday or something?
No.
Welcome back from Greece.
Thanks. That was actually, that was a trip.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Sure.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Yes.
Yahoo!